Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is going to be so much fun. And guess what? It is about reality TV, something we know just a little bit about in these parts. I have a great guest about to join me. You may know him from a little show called The Golden Bachelorette. That's right. I have Gary Livingston on. He was a fan favorite in season 1 of The Golden Bachelorette, and he is going to spill the tea and talk to us today. So, welcome to the program and stay tuned for Bachelor Gary Livingston.
A very commentary.
Well, okay, so congratulations on Bachelor in Paradise.
Yeah.
And you were such a fan favorite on the Golden Bachelorette.
Yes.
And, as a reality person myself, I wanted to kind of start with that because I was on Housewives, whole different franchise, whole different thing. And it was, it was a lot to be on a show like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you and I had different experiences. Yours was really good. You told me when we met that you had such a good time being on the show and
It
that
was
you made friends.
it was truly um a journey that I'm still on. One that I could have never imagined or wondered by any means of the imagination of what was to come. And so I'm not one to speculate or look at tomorrow, but staying in the moment is what's most important to me, and realizing that this is all we have, this right now, this is our gift. The bromance that was being developed, I don't even think the producers realized what was happening or what they had, because on the Golden Bachelorette, they were of the mindset that these old guys are going to be sitting around the barbecue pit, smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, and talking about golf. And they
Yeah.
got quite the opposite, as you guys saw that
Yeah.
was brought out on live TV.
Wow, that's amazing. And you still keep in touch with a lot of these guys now.
Today, we're all communicating. It's coming up on a year. Let's get the Bachelor Mansion. Let's go to Palisades. Let's go to Vegas. What are we going to do for our annual trip? So, yeah, we're all in touch with each other on a regular basis. It's very
Well, let's go. I want to go a little bit further back because I mean a lot of these things Gary and I talked about when we met each other. Um, that you come from a really interesting family. You were not a person trying to get into reality TV. You were happily, tranquilly living in Palm Desert, and this came about. But you do have a little bit of a background as far as television and athlete or athletics and kind of a famous godmother.
Yeah. Um, Entertainment is no stranger to me and my background. I had an uncle who was nominated to the 1959 inaugural Grammys for Best Male Vocal, up against the likes of Frank Sinatra, Bobby Darin, Harry Belafonte, um, and um, and so my mother would always be playing his music in the background. Now this was 1959. That's the same year I was born. And to have that kind of fame and glory around the family, unfortunately, the following year he lost his life. Uh, but then 5 years later, I had another uncle who was a professional baseball player for the LA Dodgers. So as I was growing up listening to the music, I then was introduced to sports, and the whole time in my neighborhood, very famous and popular folks and their kids. And the Turners were, the four boys, Craig, Ike, Michael, and Ronnie, were classmates of mine from like the fourth, fifth grade. So we all grew up
Wow.
together. Ray Charles lived around the corner, and um, his son David Robinson was his name. Also was part of the circle. Willie Davis, another famous ball player. When my uncle didn't take me to the ballpark, I was going with Willie and his son. So
Just
growing
your
up there,
average neighborhood.
your average neighborhood. And it's interesting because what all seemed very normal to me, my relatives who were on the other side of the tracks, so to speak, right? They were on the other side of town. And I had to go to my grandma's house. And that's where my faith and foundation was established, was through my grandmother, my grandparents. I can remember my grandpa and I listening on the radio to Vince Scully as my uncle was playing ball and my grandma warming up the peanuts. But I had to remember verses out of the Bible when I was over there, because it was such a big part of our upbringing. So, long story short, it was a great upbringing, and in my neighborhood, they called that the Black Beverly Hills, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it was just a normal neighborhood where Red Fox lived five doors
No
down.
way. Red Fox?
He had a monkey in the backyard.
No way.
Now we're little boys, right? We're little 10-year-old, like little Dennis the Menace running around the neighborhood. And we throw rocks at this monkey.
No way. Would the monkey throw them back?
No, Red Fox would come out and try and chase us down.
Really?
And of
That's
course,
so
he never
cool.
could catch us. So it was, those are some great memories. Those are some great memories.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit because I want to talk about like, the Golden Bachelorette. And how did you get on this show? Like, what happened that you all of a sudden, Gary got on this ABC massive show?
You're going to love this, Mary.
Oh,
So,
good. I can't wait to hear.
um, I'm also one of the greeters on Sundays, and the casting directors showed up at our church. And I said, "Are you new to our church?" Because, of course, I didn't recognize them. "Yeah, we're new." And I said, "Well, let me escort you to your seats. There's some seats right here." And as I'm walking them to their seats, she hands me this flyer that says The Golden Bachelorette. Now, I never watched the show. I'm not into television that much. And I said, "No, I'm too private of a person. I can't possibly do that. I I can't do it."
So
Well,
right away, you were
we're
like, no, this is not for me.
I totally did that. And over the next 3 months, though, we befriended each other and we became friends. She had just lost her mother. I was pouring into her, helping, assisting. And then she said, "I've got this big event going on over at the river here in Rancho Mirage." And I said, "I'll come down and support, no big deal." And I went down and I saw some of the contestants, and I'm thinking, this is not a good.
Scary, right? It's scary.
Well, no, I'm talking about all the contestants that were going up there. I wasn't planning on going up there at all.
Oh, shoot.
And so I'm
Okay. All
sitting
right.
back, observing and looking and saying to myself, she needs some help, because the pool of men, it wasn't very good.
Really?
And she goes,
Oh,
"Gary, just fill out the little form." So I'm thinking, how harmless. Let me just fill this form out. I got up on the stage, and, and of course,
and
Jackie's
people
in
loved
the
you.
audience.
People loved you.
The next day, I get a call, "You're number one. We're going to push you through. We got to get your lighting ready. The executive producers are calling." And I'm like, what just happened? And
Wow,
the
that's
rest is history.
crazy.
That's how they found me.
Well, here's
In
a
the
question for
church of
you.
all places. I'm sorry.
That's crazy from at church. I mean, that is definitely divine intervention, I think. Can we get an amen for that?
Amen. Amen.
Amen. I was going to ask you, so what was your love life like at that point? I mean, were you looking like, are you looking for that someone special? Were you at that point?
Well, I'm always looking to complete myself, to do the godly thing, and I believe in marriage. I believe in the institution of marriage, and I want to live my life in that way, so that I have a partner, a companion to walk
Yeah.
the life with. And so, um, dating life was just, going out to eat or something like that, but there wasn't anything with any substance to it. Um, because I don't want to just date someone. I'm not looking for a girlfriend. And so I leaned very heavily into the activities at church, the men's ministry.
Well,
Uh,
that's a great place to meet people,
yeah,
right? At church. Did you
absolutely.
ever do the online thing? Were you ever like,
I did about 20 years ago. Yeah.
wow, that's when it first started? Probably, wasn't it about 20 years ago? Like
And
on Tinder, were you swiping?
no, I didn't do
Oh,
Tinder. I did Match.com.
oh,
And
Match. So you did the real deal.
yeah, the real deal. And I met someone, and we were together for like 10 years.
No
And
way.
I retired. They were still heavy in the workforce and they're in the entertainment business also. Um, she's an amazing person. We're great friends, but I was ready to get out of the fast lane. And that's when I came to the desert and said, it's time for me to slow my pace. I'm ready to retire and really um, not not run at 100 miles an hour on a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone.
Right. Well, for people who don't know, or have never been to the desert that are watching this, I mean, it is a different lifestyle. I mean, I spend so much time here, and like at 7 o'clock or 7:30, I'm one of the last people at the restaurant eating dinner. So I'm like, whoa, where did everybody go? It's packed when you walk in, and then when you leave, it's only 7:30, quarter to 8, and it's like there's no one. It's crickets. You're like,
Isn't it interesting, Mary, how at around 9:30, it looks like it's about 3 in the morning in the
yeah,
city.
yeah.
There's no one out, and it's where is everybody
Where
at?
is everybody? So it's a difficult place to really, maybe outside of church, like if people are not churchgoers, where do they go to find, someone? There is a place here, and Gary, you know of it, and I'm sure you've been, called The Nest. Now, The Nest, I don't know how to even describe The Nest. I don't even know what to say about it, but it's
Let
like
me.
what do you call it? Like a pickup joint for people over 50?
Oh, well, it's funny because when I first came out here, I had a buddy who lived at PGA West, and we played around the golf. It's in August, so it's like nobody's here. And I was just hungry. He says, "Let's go to the Nest. We'll find some girls." And I go, "I just want to get something to eat." He says,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we'll go to the Nest. They have a restaurant." I go, "Great. If there's food, I want to go. If not, I'm tired. It's hot. It's been a hot day." So we get there, and yeah, the Nest is a restaurant, bar, and like a disco from the back in the day, right? It's like,
It's
how do you just
hysterical. I don't know. I mean, when you go there, you feel like you've gone back in time, and everybody's dancing, and it's unique. But I mean, that is a place that people over 50 will
yeah.
go. Not that only people over 50 go there, because there's of all ages, but will go to look for someone, right? It's the
And
pickup
usually
joint,
leave with someone.
kind of. But I have so many single girlfriends, um, that, they're just, it's really hard. And maybe the desert, you can do a lot of these activities, but in different areas, um, Vancouver, for instance, I mean, it's really hard, especially because it's raining or it's snowing and it's cold and nobody's out really doing these activities. So it's just like, I love it that Golden Bachelorette and Golden Bachelor came along, because I think it's so great, um, that they moved on to an older age group.
Yeah, I would agree totally. And again, I firmly believe that the producers had no idea what they were in for, but were ecstatic after they got all the footage and moved forward with these two productions, that being the Golden Bachelor and the Golden Bachelorette. We brought a whole new level of dating, a whole new level of um, connecting that I don't think they anticipated, or the world for that matter.
It
Uh,
was so real, it did, and
Very much so.
so real, so authentic. How
Yeah.
did you feel differently with the cameras in front of you? Did that make you almost be a like slightly different Gary, or were you comfortable?
Not for me. I didn't have a problem with that. In fact, I don't think any of the guys did. because we felt safe. We were in a safe place. And when you feel safe, you can be vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, that's when you're strongest because you're getting things out that ordinarily you would have had to put up a facade and a wall that says, I'm Mr. Tough Guy, but there's still things down inside that are hurting. So the bromance that we developed was so very special as we were also rooting each other on, whoever went on the date with Joan. It was like, go for it, good job, okay. Then they'd come back, it's like, okay, so what happened? What did she say? What did you do? And then the next guy would go, okay, go for it, have some fun doing your. There wasn't the envy or the jealousy. We were rooting for each other's victories.
Wow.
Was
So
there
that's
victory?
unique, right? That's because you
Yeah,
would think there'd be competition.
no competition whatsoever. Whatsoever. There was no competition. At least as long as I was there. Um, no, 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 no
And
competition.
because like with Housewives, it's completely the opposite. Like
Right.
I went into it never having even seen one of the shows before. I was a recording artist and I had been a Miss America. I had done a lot of other things when they approached me to be on it. And I had had my degree in TV and had a producer. I produced before. So I was like, what is this show? I thought it was possibly like Desperate Housewives or something, like people that like would sort of get along. Like and then when we started, it was it was way opposite of that. It was just like I'm thinking, why are these women being so rude? They're so mean. It was not nice at all. And so I was traumatized at the very first season I did it because it was just like so unlike who I was. And so I didn't understand why they were so rude and so mean. And so a lot of the women actually were playing well, it looked like they were playing for the camera, come to find out that really was their personalities. So people change when they get a
In front of
camera in front of them. You obviously grew up around the entertainment business, as did I. So
you.
a camera wasn't that foreign to me.
Right. It's just like another person in the room and they're just holding a camera on their shoulder and you do your thing. Um, it's an interesting point you make because just last week I also went out on a date with one of the housewives of New York City, Kelly Bensimon, and we had the absolute best time. But our intro as we walked on the red carpet was, this is the Bachelor. He will cook and sing, and I will do nothing. because, because on the Housewives, it was like breakups and divorce and a lot of
Oh yeah.
catfight. And on the Golden series, it was you're finding a date, you're going to get married, you're falling in love. So it was, the dichotomy of the two worlds meeting. But I said, look, I'm looking to make sure that you have fun and have a good time because that's my makeup is if we're not having fun, then we shouldn't be here. And it was a great time. But so I can only imagine what it was like for you on Housewives of Vancouver.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. How did you meet Kelly?
well, it was during a podcast also, and we played this game, the dating game. So we could see her, but she couldn't see us.
No way, like the
And
old dating game back in like the when was it, 70s or 80s, they had that
exactly, right?
Bachelor number
And
one. If you were to take me out on a
exactly.
date.
It was so much fun. As she's asking questions of Guy, Keith, and myself. And I ended up being the runner up, but I was really the one who won because she chose Guy. But then ultimately, I was the guy that went on the date, which was the red carpet for the iHeart Music Awards. And it was so much fun. We connected and it was a fabulous time. But that's how we met. It was a dating game podcast, and yours truly won the date.
That's amazing. Well, I know that it's really different when all of a sudden you're thrust into this spotlight. So when you and I were at that birthday party, all these people were coming up to the table going, "Are you Gary? Are you Gary from the Golden Bachelorette?" And you're like, "Yeah." And like, could we take a picture? I mean, that happened like two or three times.
Oh my gosh, Mary, look, it's a lot of fun. It is fun. And the fun part about it for me is when people say, "Oh, you had such an impact on my life," or "Oh, you made such a difference," and my dad who never watches and now he watches the program, and "Oh, you were so genuine," and "Oh, you're a faith-based man," and "You were so impactful," and so for that reason, and you don't realize the impact that you're having on people's lives. And so I keep it fun. Sure, I'll take pictures, but I also keep it in perspective because now, and I mean everywhere I go, our Coachella Valley,
Yeah.
it's me. I don't know if it's the hair or what.
Well, you do have unique hair. I like your unique hair. I love it.
They they find me. They find me. I was at IW Coffee this morning, and I'm sitting with my insurance guy who's taking care of all my stuff, and these young high school girls come over and, "Aren't you from the Golden Bachelor?" "Yes, yes." And you should have seen the face of my insurance guy. He's like,
Oh my God.
"Gary, it's true."
I mean, you've got this fame now.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
remember when it happened to me, I had music out before, but nothing was like this show. Like I had, hits out on the radio, but there wasn't the visual like it is on television. And it was like, I remember going through the sale rack with my kids when they were little, and people are all staring at us and they're going, "Oh, you have a cool mom," to the kids. And they're like, "Wow, you shop in the sale rack." And I was like, "Yeah." Because housewives, you've got to have this image of all you do is like, go to Louis Vuitton every day or whatever. But it was just, it's interesting to get thrown into that spotlight.
It really is. And I think for me, my advantage was being around my godmother, Tina Turner,
I was
um,
going to ask you about that.
and seeing how she moved and operated from behind the scenes. Because Craig, my best friend, who was also my best man at my wedding, who was also roommates when I first came home from college, um, we went to the initial Grammys that she was nominated for when she
Wow.
broke off and became Tina, right? And so seeing her off the stage and off camera, she's a very private person, very conservative person who you'd never know that that's the entertainer that you see on the stage.
Mm.
So
Mm.
what I started looking at was that's work, this is home. You can separate the two. But when you're out there performing and putting on an act, it's work. And she worked very hard at what she did. But also when she went shopping to the Louis store, um, they would shut the store down and we'd be the
Yeah.
only ones in there. And I'm like, this is this is how it's done. This is, I
Yeah.
guess this is how the big shots do it. So I got a chance to see that side of it as I became a father, and you're probably wondering, well, how did she become your godmother? So my
Yeah.
mom
Tell us how she
passed
became your
away
godmother.
in '94, and we would make trips over to Europe, to south of France, and to a place in Switzerland. And I took my family this one trip, and she said, Gary, don't worry, I'll be your godmother, but the kids can't call me grandma. They have to call me Auntie Tina. She did not want
Oh,
to be called
well,
grandma.
look at her. Look what
So
she looked like till
I
even the
know.
very
I
ends. I
know.
mean, come on.
So she took on that role that I could refer to her as godmother. She gave me lots of books to read. One in particular I will never forget is The Power of the Subconscious Mind. She was Buddhist, and I delved into that a little bit, but I always came home to my foundation and my faith in Christianity. So
I always like I do read a lot of Buddhist books and have often read the Dalai Lama and things like that. But there's some beauty to Buddhism, I think.
yeah, yes, yes.
And I think you can have there's room to have your faith in God and Jesus, and also practice a little Buddhism. It's good for you.
Karma.
Yeah, yeah. But Tina Turner, she lived in Switzerland. Did she not move to Switzerland?
She moved to the south of France and then then she leased a place in Switzerland. You have to be a Swiss citizen to actually own property there.
Oh, right.
So she had a 25-year lease that she had on this beautiful home in Kushnat, right on Lake Zurich. Um, and it was, summertime visits and vacations to south of France and into Switzerland, to Zurich, Lake Zurich.
Well, that's pretty special to have had her as your godmother.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. It really
And
was.
what a talented, talented woman.
Absolutely.
And what she had gone through in her life too. I mean,
Yeah, overcoming some pretty serious obstacles and hurdles. Um,
I was a major fan of like a major fan. My favorite kind of music. I grew up outside of Detroit, so I loved Motown. Like that was my
yeah,
and the blues were my favorite. But
yeah.
I just I really, really loved Tina.
You know, her husband he was a genius. He really was. Musically, he owned he owned the rights of everything. He just used Capitol Records as his distribution for his music, but he had a very bad drug problem, and it was really bad. And
Yeah.
she finally was able to break away from that and became the icon that she was meant to become. Uh, and 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 we're all so very happy for that breakaway. Um, Ike Jr., who's still with us today, he stayed with his dad. Um, Craig, of course, went with his mom. Ronnie was kind of in both places. And unfortunately, my buddy Craig committed suicide
Oh
2 years
God.
before Tina passed. And then Ronnie passed away of colon cancer, but he didn't tell anyone he had cancer.
Oh,
And so he passed away in December, and then Tina the following June was, and so it was just like,
it's
it was just,
tragic.
oh my God, just awful.
Was she
And
close to those to the his children or
she was close to her children, Craig and Ronnie. Um, but when they were brought up, they were all her kids. She was the mother for
yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Um,
Well, it sounds like that. I mean, that's so cool to have one part of your life was this glamorous kind of with all these amazing neighbors and so talented, and then you had your grandmother who was more on the humble side of life
yeah,
and taught you about God
and being
and
grounded.
and being grounded.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I cherish that to this day. Uh, but it's interesting how over the years, you know, we have to be comfortable in our own skin to admit that we're Christ-like people. We have to be confident in our skin to say, I'm a godly man. We have to be confident in our skin to walk the walk that we talk about, because it's so very important to be comfortable with our faith and with our Christianity to say, this is my walk and I'm proud of it. And I give all the glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's how I live my life now. And it's absolutely amazing what has been coming to me as a result of me surrendering and letting go and letting God and not getting too far in front of myself, as we
Yeah.
often do, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
We're our own worst enemies. And I've asked for patience to wait for him who whispers in my ear as he gives me guidance and direction. I've asked for patience to wait for him to open the doors that he wants me to walk through. Mary, you're a faith person and a
Hmm.
believer. And I tell you, right when we think we've got everything under control is when everything normally falls apart, right? And we're
So true.
challenged.
So true.
And I would profess and say very confidently that the angels are carrying us. They're carrying us through the challenges. They're carrying us through our victories, through our children's victories, through their losses. And we somehow get there, but without him, it'd be a lot harder. It just would be so much harder.
It's so true, and I know from my life, I don't only talk to Jesus when I'm needing something
Yes.
or wanting him to help me solve something. I went on a walk and I'll just talk. Like,
Mm.
okay, I'm a talker, I'm a talker. And I'll just talk and say, like, wow, today was great. Be grateful for things or, I'm so happy that my son's in town visiting or thank you for that. Like the joy it's brought me, like to make sure that you include God in your daily life in giving thanks and being grateful as much as you may then one day have to go, please help me.
And it's so important. But one thing I refuse to do is to be a Bible thumper and to push that in front of other people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let my light radiate through me that attracts them to me. Um, uh, because it can be offensive. I'm certainly not going to be out of the corner of Fred Waring in Washington with a big sign, come home to Jesus. If you don't, you're going to get struck down. No, that's not how we do it.
Yeah, yeah. Because people can judge you for that, right? Instead of
Totally.
people can judge you for saying anything about your faith at all, let alone out there, uh, preaching about it. So I agree with that. But I love it that you've come from these two different places and these two different like this dichotomy of one place in the neighborhood to your grandmother's house. It's really it I come from Ohio, so I kind of grew up with a cornfield behind my house and big Catholic family. And so I feel I've come from the same kind of place
Yes, yes, yes.
and where family means so much.
It is. And again, I will repeat this over and over, and Mary, you will attest to this, that walking this life that we walk is one that I don't want to walk alone. When we surround ourselves with those who can sharpen us, iron sharpens iron, right? Um, it helps us to stay on track. It helps us to stay lifted and motivated and encouraged, if nothing else. And so that what we pour out, it comes back in such a beautiful way, and I absolutely love that about my men's ministry now at church and leading folks through this class called Rooted. It's a 10-week class before you can join the church, and I've done that now for the past 6 years. So it's something that I yearn for. I like. I have to
And you
have
know what? I should tell everybody that Gary and I attend this church called Southwest Church here in Palm Desert.
Indian
And
Wells. Church is in Indian Wells.
they
Indian
are
Wells.
in Indian Wells. Sorry, Indian Wells. And it is dynamic. It's amazing. Like I said, I grew up Catholic, so I um, went to Catholic churches my whole life. And then, but I started going to this church because I wanted to check it out, and a friend of mine went there. And so I loved it. So now, if I can't make it down to the church, I watch it online, and I just love the pastor. Ricky Jenkins, if anybody's comes down to the desert and wants to go to church, this
He is.
dude is like he's unbelievable and so
He is
relatable.
he is truly anointed, in being able to communicate with folks on every level from 8 years old to 90 years old. It's an intergenerational church, so we have folks who are in their 90s. One of my best friends that went through my Rooted group is a 94-year-old young man. He says he's 49, but he often confuses the numbers.
I hear
Uh,
you. I get
but
that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, he's pretty special.
You know,
Well,
people who
thank you.
see you on this show, they don't realize the depth of who you really are, you know, which is one of the reasons when wanted to have you on, I thought I would like to dig into more of who Gary is, not just the reality television star, because,
Thank you.
you
Thank you,
know,
Mary.
we all have different levels. And I think for me, just having been on a show like that, you, the public has a perception, you know, and find that I'm very different, way different than whatever the perception may have been, even if it was good, because I was very lucky that I ended up being on the, like I was the nice one on the show, and because that's really who I am, but I didn't feel like I needed to go to join in to that other kind of chaos that happens so often in these kinds of shows.
And it's a great point you make. I think it's easy for us being who we are when we're comfortable in our own skin. Like I said earlier, it took a while for me to say I'm a godly man. It took a while for me to be comfortable being a Christ-like man. It's not easy being a Christian in today's culture and in this world, but it is easy when you walk the walk, right? When we
Yeah.
surround ourselves with those like-minded individuals, it becomes easy. So the man that you saw on television, that's really me.
Yeah.
That is really who I am. Um,
And
this
that's
other
why people loved you though, because, or
thing,
currently love you, is because that authentic Gary and that genuine soul comes out because you were who you really are.
yeah, and so it's hard to fake that when I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
I'm just Gary.
So let me ask you, Gary, about what you guys had to all live in the same quarters or house. What was that like? Because like on our show, we would go to our own houses and then we'd meet for dinners and activities. But you guys, what was it like? I mean, I know y'all got along, but what was the food like? And what was like, did they cook for you? How did that
Okay,
all?
so it's a process. I'll explain.
Yeah.
It's a very daunting experience going through the pre, getting qualified, going through the motions of getting qualified. I attributed it to going through like pledge week, right? Where you're pledging the fraternity. You're in this period. And
Like an
then you've got
initiation? You had like an
the
initiation.
initiation is that first rose ceremony. And I started saying,
Oh, ceremony, I can't.
gotta get through this. After everything that's happened, I gotta get this rose. And so it was very stressful for all of us because we're men. And so, we're not used to someone picking us in that form or fashion. So it was a little stressful. But once we got through the rose ceremony, and those of us that did get a rose, it was like, we made it, guys. And it became like a fraternity. So the house was like a fraternity house where we
Wait, so
were.
go back to the rose ceremony for a second. So when you're standing there, like how, first of all, do you have to wait a long time, like before all Joan showed up? Were you guys like 2 hours of drinking or, you know, how long does it take before they
I,
finally go,
I,
okay,
I,
cameras are
I
ready?
I won't go into detail about any of that stuff. But what I will tell you is it's very stressful being selected by someone that you just barely got to meet and know. And that's a huge hurdle to get over. So again, was it stressful? It was very stressful.
Well, the
It was-
music, did they have the music playing like when you're standing there? Or they add that later?
there's no music.
Okay, because you know,
There's
it's
no
like the real dramatic music and the long pause and the whole like,
there's no music.
you know,
Mary, where
Gary, will you accept this rose?
I almost you see what I did my first rose. I went dancing up there
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was so happy. And she says to me, I should have known.
I should have known
And she knew I
exactly.
would be dancing my way up there. But that took off a lot of the nervousness that I had. Um, But yeah, I danced my way up to accept my first rose.
But you know, when they edit it for TV, it's like really stressful, even though it's extra stressful. We're stressed out, like watching it.
It was very powerful. Let me just say this. It was very, very powerful. So again, once we got the first, I didn't care where I slept in the mansion. I was in the mansion. We were in the mansion. And my roommates were Guy, Chalk, Charles Lynn
Yeah.
was in the bunk above me, and Michael was in the bunk below Chalk. So it's pretty cool to know that Guy and Chalk were the two finalists, but Charles and I were very much connected with the things that we did as well,
Yeah.
going out and getting the sleeping aids for the guys because of all the things that were going on.
I mean, I just can't imagine like you guys are back in bunk beds, you know? It's
It was
like
it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Um,
you're back
it
at
was
summer camp.
it was like summer camp. It was like the fraternity house, right? That's what it was for me at least. For me at least.
And you feel young and like it's very, very cool. I'm so happy to hear that because I've always felt like, you know, it was not always nice and fun and there wasn't always camaraderie. Let me tell you, there were wine glasses flying across the room and apples being hoisted at certain people, you know. It's like it's a different kind of stress, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Goldens in Paradise. It's such a great name.
There's a part of me that says, as I look at the previous episodes and I see these young, chiseled
Yeah.
25-year-old men, and I'm like, uh, I, uh, my arms don't, I don't look like that anymore. So there's a little anxiety going on with that. What I come back to is, yeah, but you're trying to get to where I'm at.
Yes.
I was once there, and you're trying to get to where I'm at with all of these wonderful years of falling and getting back up and falling and getting back up and never quitting and continuing on with my journey. You're 25, you're 30, my daughter is 37. So I'm here to give good sound, to be an inspiration and to motivate. And it's so funny because I told my daughter, I said, I'm getting cold feet. I don't think I want to do this because now I got to have my shirt off and, it's like
Yeah,
you're in
that's so
bathing
intimidating.
suits. And
Yeah.
she wrote back and she said, what? With a question mark in all caps. And that was her saying, you're doing this. And I wrote her back, I'm doing it. I'm all in. I'm all in. So it's a little intimidating in the physical sense, but from an experience perspective, I've got so much to bring to
You
the
got so
table,
much to give. Yeah.
and so much to give back. And I look forward to doing that with both the young and some of my Golden Bachelor brothers from season one that'll be with me. So
And you
that's
don't know where this Bachelor in Paradise is going to take place yet.
I don't know where, I don't know when. I just have to be ready when it's go time.
And this is unique, right? That they're going to put obviously the actual bachelors, the younger group, and the Golden Bachelors together. This is kind of the first time they're doing that, right?
It's the inaugural season of the Goldens in Paradise. Yeah.
What role did your kids play in all of this? Or your daughter? What did she say in the very beginning? I'm very curious about that. Because I
Well,
have three sons and I often wonder if I were on a show like that, what would they
yeah,
say or how would they
my
feel?
my daughter, it's interesting because she said, Dad, you have to go and do this. You know it's going to be international. I'm like, don't scare me like that. What do you mean it's going to be international? Because I never really watched the show. She says, Dad, it's international. You're going to be all over the headlines. And I took that very lightly. And little did I know she was absolutely right. My son is
Mhm.
like, Dad, go have a great time. go get them. I'm sure you're going to find love and I'm behind you 100%. But my daughter's like, Dad, this is a big deal. So
And you
that's,
didn't know what was coming down the
I
pipe, right?
didn't. And so it was super that they both supported and were my inspiration for doing this.
Well, I think that's so important too because kids really oftentimes they want their parent to find someone. And
Yes,
they want someone to really they want companionship for their
right.
parents when they get older and to support them and to even sometimes help them find someone. I think it's because otherwise sometimes they find people they don't like and that's a disaster.
Yes.
So I love that they're really supportive because I often would think of what my boys would think.
Yeah, and very much, like my daughter was my date or guest, if you will, at the last show when they announced that I was going to be one of the Goldens in Paradise. I brought her with me to be by my side, and
Wow.
and she is now my new hero. Um, Not of recent, but my grandson, who's all of 5 years old, and seeing her now become a mother and doing an amazing job, both her and my son-in-law, with raising my grandson is it's a blessing.
How
It's
beautiful.
just a blessing. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful for her as my hero now. So,
Oh, that's so beautiful, Gary. And your little grandson gonna watch you like on the beach wherever you end up in paradise. Go look at Grandpa in a bikini in one of
well,
those speedos.
first of all, there are no speedos.
You're not doing a speedo?
I'm not. I got thighs that go up to my back, so there's no speedos that are gonna fit this man how I want to wear them. And my grandson calls me Pop Pop, so he's
Pop pop.
no, he's not gonna see his Pop Pop in
No, yeah.
speedo.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on my
Oh,
show. I am so
thank you,
grateful. Really, I
thank
can't
you.
even tell you how much I'm so happy that you joined me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been an honor, and I'm humbled. And one thing I'd like to just share with you is to keep doing what you're doing because lots and lots of people need you, Mary, and I need you too. I do.
Thank you.
So keep doing what you're doing. You've got a great team supporting you and here, and never forget how much you matter to so many people. You matter, Mary, to so many. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for doing what you do. Okay, and
Very
God bless you.
thank you.
A very, very commentary.